Everyone, it's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review a film that I got to see earlier this week, The Zookeeper's Wife. So this is about a husband and wife who run a zoo who hide Jews during World War II, and it takes place in Poland, and it takes place over quite a few years, and honestly, I thought this was a pretty good movie. I did enjoy it. I thought it was well done. Was it the most impactful film about the Holocaust? No. But I think it was a really well done film, and now let's talk about some of the details. This was directed by Nikki Caro, who is set to make the new Mulan film, and she does a very good job of making the film, putting it together. Wasn't necessarily anything wrong with how Nikki Caro put this film together. And there's definitely moments of real emotion that were impactful. The biggest thing, though, looking at this, is what it could have been. And I think what it could have been was a really, really hard hitting, impactful, emotional film. But what they wind up doing is, one, they pull a lot of punches where something really drastic's going to happen and they quick cut away, quick cut back. You don't actually see what's happening, so it kind of takes away that real punch and heaviness about it, and it kind of takes away some of that sheer impact of these horrific things that are going on during this time in Poland. And another thing was there was a there's a quite a few times during this film where I felt like the suspense wasn't built up as well as it could have been. There's scenes where I thought I should be really sitting on the edge of my seat, but instead I'm a little tense, but I don't really feel that true impact. And that's the biggest thing that I have against this movie is it lacks some impact when looking at where this movie could have went. And in terms of the editing, there was a lot of it was edited very quickly, as I mentioned, quick cutaways, quick cutbacks. It was over edited to take away a lot of the impact, and also towards the second half of the film, when it really starts to jump time, it loses some of its pacing, and it gets really jarring, jumping further and further and further and further into the future very abruptly. And there's points where it's like, when did this subplot evolve? When did this begin to happen? And that was also an issue that I had with the film. The cinematography, which was done by Andres Perec, was very, very well shot. And there's very good use of tracking shots, really good use of framing everything, and everything was very visible and easy to understand and was very well put up on the screen, and can't take anything away from that cinematography. It does have moments that feel really drab because obviously things are getting, as the Holocaust begins to worsen throughout the film, really the color palette turns more into gray and becomes really drab. And I think that was a really good use of progressively showing how worse things were getting throughout this time period. This was written by Angela Workman, and for the most part, there's pretty fleshed out characters. Our main character, played by Jessica Chastain, has a lot of depth to her. She has to do a lot of things to really help these people at the detriment to herself and some of her own relationships. And Daniel Bruhl's character, who plays this zoologist for Hitler, who's using this couple zoo during the Holocaust, he had some very, very strong layers to that character and was a very interesting character and developed a very interesting relationship with Jessica Chastain's character. In terms of the husband, I felt like he was mostly well written, and then there's some things that are thrown in where it's like big jarring, like now he's feeling this particular way, now he's feeling jealous. And I think that could have been handled with a little more finesse. And honestly, once we get to the third act of this film, the story becomes a little choppy because it becomes shorter and shorter time spent in each time period, and then the gaps between time keep jumping and jumping and jumping. And I know they're trying to cut to the chase, but honestly, this film could have been spread out a little bit longer. Because the thing is, a lot of Holocaust films, World War II films, are longer films, and that's okay if it means fleshing out the story. But if you realize, oh crap, we've spent 2/3 of the movie runtime already going over like not even the first half of the timeline, let's rush to the end, that's not exactly the best choice to do. And there are some really great moments in this film and really great relationships, and I have to give the writing a lot of credit for that. In terms of the acting, Jessica Chastain was fantastic. I think she's a real standout already earlier in the year for being the one of the big front running best actress performances so far this year. She hit the Polish accent very, very well. It was very believable. It felt natural, and I felt everything that she was feeling, and it was really well done. Daniel Bruhl really sticks out as the Best Supporting Actor nominee so far this year. He really got to flesh out some layers to this character and build really interesting relationships with some of the other characters, because one of my biggest pet peeves about a lot of Holocaust and World War II films is that they just rely upon the fact our villains are Nazis. And which, yeah, they did absolutely horrendous things, but they're just a caricature. And you don't really get to have a really great, depthful villain or antagonist in this case, because I don't know if he's quite a villain per se, but he's definitely the antagonist for driving force through this film, and he does a really good job. The actor Johann Heldenberg, who plays the husband, thought did a really nice job. Shira Haas, who plays this young girl who is raped and then is winding up staying with his family, for a child actor, does an amazing job and really hits the emotional depths that she has to hit for this role, and I was very impressed by that. The actor who played the son, not the when he was first very young, the second half of the film actor who played the son was just awful, and unfortunately had to act against Daniel Bruhl in a very, very gritty scene, and kid looked completely out of his element, and that kind of took away from the film for me because he became a bigger and bigger part throughout the film. And then there's one actor I wanted to bring up because I really liked this character. He was basically the caretaker for the zoo. Such a nice guy and would do anything for this family, but got no depth to him at all. And it's Michael Eckleharten, who is from Game of Thrones, who plays Roose Bolton. And I'm like, wow, this guy seems like he has personality, unlike in Game of Thrones. I recently caught up with Game of Thrones, and Roose Bolton's probably one of the most bland characters in that whole entire TV show, and I really feel like the actor who played him, his character got shortchanged in this film and could have gotten some more depth. But I actually did really enjoy what he brought to the film in the little bit that he was actually in. And in terms of the music by Henry Gregson Williams, I felt like the music was very well done, fit really well for the film, but only at certain points it really stand out as this is a great soundtrack. Overall, it was serviceable, it did its job, and honestly, that's how a lot of this film wound up feeling. It was very serviceable, it did a really good job, well made for the most part, but missed out on some great potential. But I'm not going to take that away from the fact that this was still a well done, engrossing film, at least for my taste. And I'm going to give The Zookeeper's Wife a B minus.